And then 6 years after, and it was in 2009, I think, she called me at home, and asked me if I was still working as a location manager in Belgium, and I said yes. And she said, don't you want to change? And I said, yes, why not? And she said, okay, so you're going to be the production manager of my new film, and we are going to shoot in Malaysia. It was Almayer's Folly. It was in 2010, and we didn't shoot in Malaysia, but in Cambodia. And that was during all those months that I really met Chantal, much more than in the past, because of course I was very close to her. We did the recce together. We went first time in Cambodia, just the two of us. We went the second time in the Cambodia, just the two of us. I made the location scouting for that film, and also I tried to tell her that maybe we should have also help from Belgium, because her structure, production structure, was a little bit weak at that time in Belgium. So I said, why don't you ask an executive producer to help you? And she agreed on that, and it was Patrick Quinet. And after that, we also had him as a délégué producer in France. So we were just, how can I say, free? We were just, yes, free to do whatever we want, exactly. So yeah, it took 1 year, actually, almost, to complete that process and to accomplish and to be able to shoot. And we start shooting in November 2010 till the end of December. Yes, that's how I met Chantal. And during all those months, I, of course, met her much more than earlier. And I had the feeling that maybe it would be nice to do a documentary on her work and on her too, because she was not at all, for me, what the people used to think she is or she was. So I started thinking about that, and I proposed that when I was back in Belgium. And I heard at that point that there is a structure, which is the Communauté Française de Belgique, which is the Ministry of Culture, but for the French part in Belgium, that they were having a kind of collection about filmmakers in Belgium. So I proposed them to do a film on Chantal. They said yes, but they say, but who are you? And I said, yes, I'm nothing maybe, but I can try. So it took a little while to convince them that I could be able to do a film about Chantal. But at the end, it happened.
And during the making of the film, you also heard the film is made out of interviews with her?
During the documentary, you mean? Or
documentary. Your documentary about Chantal.
If I did a lot of interviews?
Yes.
Not really.
So it's, could you maybe just explain a little bit what was the structure of the film? And
actually, I didn't have any structure. I mean, not really. Of course, I knew that I wanted to do a film with Chantal about her. And then one day I went to Paris because she was living there. She lived there. And I said, we went for dinner. We went for dinner in a restaurant. And at the end of the dinner, I just said to her, look, Chantal, I'm thinking to something. I'd like to make a movie. I'd like to make a film on you. And she just said, okay. And it started like that. And I knew that I wanted to shoot her in different places, in different countries, which were relevant for her. But I didn't have a real structure. Actually, it began in 2014. We went in Israel first to shoot. At that time, she just lost her mother. And we went over there because she was called for an installation. And she was helped with 2 students of Jerusalem. And she said, if you want to start there, it's maybe a good time. And we went with the crew over there and we started shooting, but I didn't have any idea of what I was going to do there. I just followed her and I started to shoot. And we went on Ricky when we were there. We found that big kind of strange structure where she is on the top for the interview, the main interview in the documentary. And I just asked her one question. And she just spoke during more than half an hour. It was Chantal, you know.
Yeah, it's very, to me, she is one of the main artists of art house cinema, of course, in the end of 20th century. And her career is something really impressive because she constantly adapts to passage of time and to difference in technique and in evolution to digital. She also switched. So it's really an honor to show her at Beldocs for the first time some of her films. I just wanted, before we switch to the production, if you have some anecdote you would like to tell.
I have a lot.
Yes.
But I don't know how to start with anecdotes with Chantal. You know, she was such a character. It was sometimes so easy. But I just want to tell something about what you said just before, saying that for you it was maybe one of the biggest artists because she was able to adapt herself to the new technology in the movie. I think that was the way for her to stay free, you know, to be independent and to do whatever she wants. Because she was not how can I say it? She was not what we can call a real technician. She was just always in a mood of being receptive to the world. And then she was able, in being in that mood, to absorb and film and emmagasiner, absorber, absorb the facts and the life and yes, and she was for me much more an intuitive, working on intuition and sensitivity than on intellect and reflection. What was your question?
No, I was just, if you want to share some anecdotes, some experience you had, you really, it's unique.
Actually, I have plenty of funny experience, you know, because Chantal and I we have a very fun relationship. She was really. It's maybe not so obvious when you see the movie she made, but she was really fun, you know, and she was a kind of. So we had a lot of good moments. Especially when we were on Ricky. I don't know if you see that. It's not in the documentary. Just few pieces, but there is a kind of bonus on the DVD in the documentary, and that bonus is made with some shots that I did when we were on Ricky in Oklahoma, because at that time she just called me. Also, it was a little bit earlier, before doing the documentary, really, she called me and she said, I got an idea, would you like to come with me in Oklahoma? And I said, yes, why not? You know, whenever you want, Chantal, I go whenever you want to go. So, yes, we did that, and it was really special moments. just, we were just the two of us doing kind of Ricky and trying to see if if the idea she had was really relevant or not. So, but like this, and especially in English, it's so hard to tell and to give the real color of anecdotes. I mean, I have plenty of them, but I couldn't tell them like that.
Okay. So, yeah, and in this film also, the thing you mentioned about the humor, which is like, sometimes I have feeling that sometimes we don't laugh because something is funny, but because something is cute and full of life. Mm-hmm. And in Chantal cinema in general, what I would like to say, how do you say? To point out, yeah, is, sorry, please forgive me, is this life, constant spark of life in every film of her, even if it's an essay or even if it's a narrative film, or if it's a non-narrative hybrid, but it's constantly full of life. And in this film, there were also like funny moments with these pans, but with these people reacting to camera or not. So yes, so that's one of this vivid.
Yeah, but that's true. Moment. I mean, she was full of life. I mean, by moments, like everyone.
So, so you. Could you tell us what is your approach when you work with various directors in various types of different styles?
You mean as a production manager?
Yes. Yes.
I have almost the same approach every time. And of course, I adapt myself to the filmmaker too, because some of them don't want you to interfere with the job, and others are really taking care of your advice or your feeling about how to do that. How can I say? Producing an author is always very difficult, and but I used to say that I'm not a producer, which is true. I'm not a producer. I'm not there to find the money. I'm there to spend it. I used to say that. Usually the producer don't like me to say that, but it's the reality. I'm there to say, okay, that film maybe will cost that amount of money. And in saying that, of course, I have to see how we can respect the desires of the filmmaker or the director, and in the same time respect the budget or the money we have to do it. It's quite sometimes it's quite difficult, and it can be a kind of exercise, not so. It's never really balanced, but we try to find solution. Of course, I'm not the only one to be in the to deal with that. I need the help of the crew and of all the members of the crew to really make the film. So yes, I would say my approach is usually the same, but depending on the filmmaker and of what he wants me to do or what he's agreed for me to do with him, in the kind of dialogue I can have with him, so with him or with her. For example, right now I'm working with Mia Ansenlove. Do you know her? So she's a filmmaker, a French filmmaker, and we are going to shoot in 1 week. Not shoot in 1 week, but in 1 week we'll be in Sweden for 2 months on Berkman Island. And I mean, every film is quite different. The structure, the conditions of production are different. Here, for example, I'm working with 4 countries. So I have 4 producers. I have to tell them how I think the film is possible or not, how much it will cost. I have to say, okay, how much money do you have to do that in your country? How much do I have to respect and spend on your territory? So it's quite, that part of the job is not so funny, actually. Yeah. Dealing with money is the...
But without that part, I mean...
Yes, but...
Things would collapse, you know?
Yeah. Yes, of course, but it's... yeah, it's not the funniest part. It's not the funniest part. Yeah.
Do you have maybe comments about the film? To say something to Marianne, or yes?
Yes, I would say it has changed for sure, but anyway, if you are shooting a documentary, you can still have a space of freedom, if I can say so, because you are not obliged, if it's a documentary, to ask people the permission to shoot them. If it's a feature, fiction, you have to, because of course they could say, I don't agree, you put my picture in the film and I'm not agree with that, I don't agree with that, so I block the release of the film, which is not the case in documentary. So for me, documentary is still yes, a space for freedom, and I think really the filmmaker should, you know, take that tool to experiment and to work, because fiction is becoming so heavy to produce, to do films. I mean, it's so many sacrifices for everyone, for the director first, but also for producer and for the crew. I mean, it's always a sacrifice that you have to do. So yes, for me, documentary is the way, I would say. Yeah, and it has changed a lot. Yes, because of course now people are used to to images. I mean, we are full of images all the time, you know. So they want to control, even if they are not able to do so. Yeah, world is changing.
Was it difficult to notice Russia? This is a country which had more political control of everyday life.
Excuse me?
About the Est, the film we saw.
I was not on that film.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was not on that one. No. On that film, yes, she always said that it was very strange to her the way people were staying without saying one word, and they were really close with the camera, and they were having a big technical car, you know, where the camera was mounted on. And it was amazing for her. She often said that about Dest. And she often said also that now it couldn't be possible to do the same. Absolutely, yeah. But it was just in 1992, or because the film has been released in 1993, I think. And it was just after the wall breakdown in East countries, and especially in Berlin, of course. So she took that opportunity to, not an opportunity, but she went at that time in some of East countries to see how it was and how he will never again. Yeah. You're welcome.
There was one more hand, or not?
The guy has left, I think. The guy has left.
The guy has left. Sorry. Do you have any more questions? Yes?
Vous parlez français? Vous pouvez me la répéter en français, je vais mieux la comprendre, mais je vais... Alors, that's what I was saying just earlier. I'm not a producer, so I never produced Chantal. I went with her and I worked with her as a location manager first, and then as a production manager. And even on Almayer's Folly, I was kind of, in English we can say line producer, which is, yes, someone much more involved than the production manager. But I'm not a producer. But I'm there to be with the filmmaker, to be with them and to help them in making their movie. But I never worked as a production manager on any documentary on Chantal. I just worked on fiction films with her, 3 films.
So you don't know directly, for example, how she was producing that kind of documentary, or do you think it's still possible to do that kind of thing?
Je vous entends mal. Dites-moi. Oui. Alors, I know a few about the production. I mean, about how that movie was produced at that time. I know what Chantal told me or told to people, that it was hard to produce, and she went there with just few people in the crew. Raymond Fromont, who's the director, Pierre Mertens, who's the sound engineer. There were just few of them, you know, and they were going, shooting, coming back in Belgium, and then going back in Russia or in Poland when they had money. It was quite hard, and she wanted to shoot in Super 16 millimeter, which is quite heavy. At that time was still quite heavy, much more than in, you know, of course, digital, to work with a digital camera. So yes, it was kind of, but it was always like that, you know, with Chantal. She was telling you, okay, why don't you come with me on Ricky in Oklahoma? And you just say yes, and you do. So I think it was in the same mood than the people who have been with Chantal in the making of Dest. I think that they made that in the same mood. Why don't you come with me? We are going to shoot in the East countries. Why don't you come with me? And people have probably said yes. But I have few clue about that. To work with an author? To be brave, to be courageous, yes, to be determined. How can I say? I mean, it's a tough job. It's a tough job because, you know, producing an author right now in the context in which we are for the moment, meaning that authors have not any more screens to show their own film. I mean, it's quite difficult because, of course, if you are not able to show your films you are not able to find money, because this is the rule right now. I mean, people want to see movie, and they are okay to produce movie and give money for making movie if those movies are seen by some people. And this is the real problem. I mean, with all the platforms, internet of course, but all the ways that we have right now to see and to watch film, of course, producing fiction especially has become un parcours du combattant, comme on dit en français. How can I say parcours du combattant? Do you understand that in French? In French, it's a kind of struggle. Fighter battle? Fighter battle, voilà. Yes, because all the producer you can meet now will tell you, how do you want me to produce that? Nobody is going to see it. So they don't want to take any risk, you know. They don't want to. They are not. I mean, a lot of them are not involved anymore. They are not with an author. They are just trying to make film and to offer to the public, and they are just how can I say? They want an audience. They want an audience, so that's all they want, quote unquote.
You said something about documentary being the future, but I remember this press conference at Venice where Chantal was speaking how there are no borders between documentary and fiction. So what's your take on that? What do you think about that?
Was it in Venice when she...
I remember, it's on YouTube, but I remember it from Jose Luis Guerin's film Guest, when he was in Venice.
Okay.
He shot
You shot a film on her?
Yeah. Not on her, but that press conference is
okay.
in the film.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, but she said, very often she said that there is no border between documentary and fiction. There is a part of documentary into the fiction and a part of fiction into the documentary. She said actually that in the documentary I made on her, she said, by the moment you put a camera, you are making fiction, because of course you are choosing a frame, you are choosing something to show. So it means that you are not exactly in the reality or taking care of the real, yes, for her it was not so, I mean, there were not really a border between those two kinds of filmmaking.
And you, when you work on projects, what would you say it would be the main thing when you decide if you're going to accept to work or not? Is it
for me,
yeah.
The main thing is money too. I'm joking. No. It can be money sometimes, you know, because of course I have to earn my life as everyone. But no, I mean, usually you work for producers who know you and who call you to do a film. Sometimes I say no, because I'm not interested. But it's very hard to say no in the kind of position we have, because first time you say no, after they don't call you anymore. So yes, you have to say no in a smart way. To say
you don't say no, but you say
you don't say no, I'm not interested. You say, look, I'm a little bit tired, I need some rest, I just finished something which was pretty hard, you know. But I have the chance. I mean, I have the chance. I don't know if other production manager have that chance, I think so. But I have the chance to be chosen sometimes by the director. It was the case with Chantal, and it was the case also with Frédéric Fontaine in Belgium and a few others. So, yes, that's maybe because I like to be with them. I like to discuss with them. I like the dialogue with the directors. Some other production managers are not doing the job in that way. They are doing the job more in the production spirit or mind, if you see what I mean. But me, I prefer to be next to the director. And I prefer to try to defend the director's project and ideas, even against the producer. I think it's much more interesting for me.
Do you have more comments or questions? Yes?
Si vous avez un choix, vous préférez travailler avec des non-auteurs ou des auteurs?
Pardon? Donc, I prefer to work with auteur, that's for sure. Yes, that's for sure. Excuse me? Oui, bien sûr. Yes. When I said that it was for money that I was working, of course, I was a little bit joking. I mean, of course, it's not. As I said, I have to earn my life. But of course, I really prefer to work with auteur. Sometimes they give you the opportunity. Some producers give you the opportunity to make. In Belgium, to work on big budget film. Big French comedies, if you know what I mean. And usually I say no to those kind of films because, it doesn't make me laugh, those comedies. I'm sorry.
Yes?
Yes, I would like to make one general comment and then a question. I arrived in the Belgian embassy a couple of months ago, so I'm very happy to see Chantal Akerman being shown that way, so it's good to discover that. And she's often not enough recognized in Belgium and more international than Russia. This is a general comment. I have a question also. If you look at the movie, it's quite it's not something you come out happy. It's a depressing movie that I recognize because I was in Russia in the 90s, so it's recognizable. It's a very good picture of what it was. But I was wondering, it's a personal question, if you don't want to answer it, you shouldn't. We know how she came to, how she died. She committed suicide, apparently. I was wondering what kind of person Chantal Akerman was. Was she an optimistic one? Was she a happy one? Or was she more a reflection of what we've seen in the movie?
I think like all of us, she was, sometimes optimistic, sometimes pessimist, and sometimes in between. As I said earlier, she was full of life, but she was also full of something much more deep and sad. So yes, she, how can I say, to answer to your question properly. Yes, the best way to discover Chantal and to know who she was is to watch her films. I think this is the answer. She was what she filmed. So sometimes sad. Because it's a depressing movie, that's true, but it's also a very poetic movie. It's also a very poetic film.
Yes, it's like end of an era.
Yes.
That's what I get from this film.
But also, what is sad in this time, it is what she said about it also. It is when she filmed those people, it reminds her other pictures in the past of the history. That's why it is also a sad and depressive movie. Because of course it's connected to the Shoah in a way.
We have more questions, maybe? No? I would like to ask you, what if we could very simply say, what would be your definition of author? Like, because we have debates, author cinema versus non-author cinema. We have festivals which are more for commercial cinema. Some festivals are more for author cinema. Do you think it should be called like that? This conflict should exist or not?
I don't think a conflict should exist. I think the debate is important, yes, because of course you cannot put all the movies and all the films in the same bag, as we say in French. And of course, author film and like Chantal, of course, but like others too, are made by artists before being made by maybe technicians, or it is made by people who have who feels the necessity of doing that, or shooting, or showing what they feel and how they want to. C'est ça que voilà le mot que je cherche. Comment on peut le retraduire je le trouve même plus en français. Le transmettre. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yes. 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 So yes, I think that maybe conflict is not interesting, but debating about that and not building borders, because we have enough with borders. But trying to establish maybe other bridges instead of borders between those two worlds would be a way for reconciliation. Because I think it's important to keep going on to produce author instead of producing big movies which are maybe seen by a lot of people but not very nourishing or interesting, So yeah, I think it's important to keep going on to debate.
Yes. Any more questions, maybe?
How about today? Are there going to be some more retrospectives of her work in Europe, for example, or in America or somewhere?
Excuse me? Could you speak a little bit louder?
The question was if there, do you know if there are upcoming retrospectives of Chantal Akerman some?
So I'm sorry, I didn't catch everything you said again. I'm sorry. So
presentations of her work abroad, there will be what will be coming recently. Because there was a huge exhibition, a year ago. But what is coming now in the future about her work? How it will be presented?
I think there is different way to present Chantal's work. And anyway, I think that there is a lot of retrospective in the world, kind of tribute almost everywhere. I mean, she's very, it's amazing how she's so famous around the world, because with the documentary I made, I had, after that, of course, I've been invited in a lot of festivals, especially in tribute to her, and I went to Korea, I went to US, I went to Montreal, and each time I was in a festival, I mean, I met people who were really fans of Chantal Akerman, because it is a little bit strange, but she was able to have fans, you know, she's like Michael Jackson, you know. So yes, I mean, her piece of work is still vivid, and I'm quite sure that her piece of work will, you know, continue to live. I mean, everywhere. Here a tribute, there an exhibition, over there something else. I mean, yes, she will be, she's with us.
And her last film was also screened in Belgrade, No Home movie. Yeah, on, not this here. No, 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that film, she discusses with some important topics that she has been struggling with her whole life. I remember I saw it in November 2015 on Auteur Cinema Festival. So, do you have maybe more questions, or?
Go ahead. You mean in Chantal's movie, the relationship she had with her mother, and the importance of her mother in her life and in her piece of work? Yeah, I mean, yes, she said that very often, that her mother was maybe the center of her work. Actually, I don't know why. She knows. As you know, her mother was in the concentration camp in Auschwitz, and she was one of the survivors of the long march. And I think, of course, that Chantal, as a child, even if her mother didn't say anything about that and about that past, is really marked with that story. And that story is also everywhere in her work. So, yes, the mother in Chantal's movie is really in the center of her work. I mean, she is always making references to her, or you know, when you know her a little bit, you can recognize the mother figure, I mean, the mother in each of her films. I mean, for example, in Demain on déménage, of course, it is Aurore Clément. In Delphine Seyrig, Jeanne Dillman, of course, it is Delphine Seyrig. This is all those women characters in Chantal's movie have something to do with her mother, always. So yes, it's it was a very important relationship, of course, that she had with her mother. As you can see that again in No Home movie. I mean, her mother is present, is there, even if it's the last moments of her mother. Yeah.
Do you have more questions? If not, I would like to thank you for coming.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, my English is but I'm tired today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and
Thank
enjoy the rest of the
me.
festival. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. you know, as I always say, it's always important for me to evoke Chantal's memory and spirit. So thank you to Beldocs.
Thank you so much.